At the end of the day, like the book of Zechariah, I believe chapter 13 says, at the end of the day, any brother that's really in this thing, you know what I'm saying, understands that no matter how you love them, like we're showing love when we go out there and we suffer, you know, what we suffer when we go out and do the lessons, you know, we suffer the ridicule, you know, suffer, you know, the spiritual battle of going back and forth with, you know, these lost sheep. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you in this thing and you actually seeing how it's playing out, you must understand that, you know, a lot of Jake gonna die, you know what I mean? And that's just how it is. You set up to die here. So I'm about to start in the book of Judges. And Judges chapter 4. Judges 4, verse 1. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of YAHAWAH when Ehud was dead. And the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. And the children of Israel cried unto YAHAWAH, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel. Verse 4. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lephadoth, she judged Israel at that time. And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah, between Ramah and Bethel and Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came unto her for judgment. Verse 6. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh, Naphtali, and said unto him, Hath not the Lord YAHAWAH of Israel commanded, saying, Go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali, and of the children of Zebulun? Verse 7. And I will draw unto thee to the river Kishon, Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his multitude, and I will deliver him into thine hand. Verse 8. And Barak said unto her, If thou wilt go with me, then I will go, but if thou wilt not go with me, then I will not go. Verse 9. And she said, I will surely go with thee, notwithstanding the journey that thou takest shall not be for thine honor. For the Lord shall sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. And Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Verse 10. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up with 10,000 men at his feet, and Deborah went up with him. Okay, so this is about Deborah and Barak. YAHAWAH's redemptive program has passed through several phases throughout the centuries. Each phase has called forth a need for a distinctive kind of leadership. This quarter's theme, YAHAWAH's urgent call, demonstrates this truth in the variety of tasks to which YAHAWAH called his servants. Our first four lessons come from the book of Judges, which portrays an unstable and at times chaotic time in Israel's history. Under Joshua's leadership, Israel had entered Canaan, established supremacy through conquest, and divided the land among the individual tribes. But because of tribal weakness, negligence, and spiritual decline, the conquest remained incomplete. Faced with both internal and external enemies and lacking unity, the tribes lurched from crisis to crisis. Leaders for such a time need to be strong. They need strength of courage, resolve, faith, and moral character. As we shall see, the judges YAHAWAH chose did not always exhibit these qualities in proper measure, but as is illustrated in this lesson, YAHAWAH was gracious. The cause. The beginning, well, this is back in Judges 4:1. The beginning of our passage takes us a familiar theme in Judges. Takes up a familiar theme in Judges. After the death of Joshua and his contemporaries, the people of Israel abandoned the exclusive worship of Yahawah and lapsed into idolatry. Disregarding Yahweh's warning, they made peace with the Canaanites they were commanded to exterminate, intermarried with them, and began to worship their deities, which is in Judges 2, verses 10 through 13. Their disobedience brought divine judgment in the form of invasion and oppression by neighboring peoples. Verse 14. Whenever this happened, the Israelites cried out for help. And that was when we still, had some semblance. I mean, that's how you know it was divinely planned, I mean, that's when, because when you read the book of Judges, like we would go off, Yahweh would send, something to get us back in line and send a judge to set things back in order, and then they go off again. And look at it nowadays, though. You know what I mean? Like, we completely fucked up for real. Whenever this happened, I'm gonna repeat it. Whenever this happened, the Israelites cried out for help, and Yahweh graciously raised up judges to deliver them. Judges 2 and 16, and bring peace. But they learned nothing from these experiences, and before long they lapsed into an even worse apostasy than before. Thus began a series of cycles of oppression and deliverance that would last for several hundred years, which is in verses 17 through 19. These cycles are detailed in Judges 3 through 16. Deliverance by Ehud and Shamgar are recounted in Judges 3. An 80-year period of peace, the longest recorded respite in the book of Judges, followed the days of Ehud, which is verse 30. But Israel renewed apostasy, brought an end to this, and Yahweh's judgment fell again. And that's what, like I said, starting in the book of Judges, chapter 4, verse 1. The consequences, Judges 4 and 2. As a judgment for the Israelites' sin, Yahweh sold them into slavery to Jabin, the Canaanite king who reigned in Hazor, whereas earlier oppressors had come from Mesopotamia, which is chapter 3, verse 8, and Moab, verse 12. Both foreign territories. This one came from within Canaan itself. This was a sharp reminder that Israel had not subdued the inhabitants of the land as Yahweh had commanded them to do. These Canaanites came from the northern part of the land. Hazor was Hazor was a strong city north of the Sea of Galilee in the tribal territory of Naphtali. In Joshua's day, earlier, Jabin of Hazor had organized a league of resistance against Israel, but Joshua defeated him and burnt the city. You can read that in Joshua chapter 11, verse 1 through 13. Now another Jabin, undoubtedly a descendant of the first, ruled over a rebuilt city and harassed Israel. Jabin's, however, does not figure prominently in this account. The focus falls on the captain of his army, Sisera, which dwelt in Har-Sheth of the Gentiles, which is in Judges 4 and 2. Although the exact location of this town is uncertain, which, like I said, I will have to go research or, question the elders. Because, like I said, this kind of coming from Esau, They say it's by the Kishon River where it flowed toward Mount Carmel of the Gentiles, implies that it must have been the home of a mixed population. So it was more than likely mixed with heathens. You had Canaanites there. If this was dealing with the Canaanite king, then I could see other heathens being there. The cry, Judges 4 and 3. The Israelites cried unto Yahweh. Although there is no indication of whether they repented of their sins, they were desperate for help. They were desperate for his help, since Sisera had ruthlessly oppressed them for 20 years, and they were helpless to resist, which is in Judges 5, verses 6 through 8. Sisera's strength lay in his 900 iron chariots. Chariots were the ultimate weapon in those days. They had been used in the Near East for several hundred years before this. The Egyptians had a long Salaki, the Egyptians had long had them, which you can read in Genesis 41, verse 43, as had some of the earlier Canaanites, which you can read in Joshua 11 and 4. But those apparently had been made of wood, since Joshua had burned the ones he confiscated, which is in verse 9.